anytime, any day. Why not right now? Stop looking up to your boss and start being your own boss. Don't work for paychecks. Work for dreams with no regrets. This is Cracking the Entrepreneur Code. If you have the passion, we'll create the blueprint. Now, your host. You know him from his 7 tips to build the business you always wanted, and now you're about to hear a lot more. Jack H.M. Wong.
Welcome to another episode of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast show. So I've got a very interesting guy coming on board, and his name is Damion Lupo. So let me just share with you who Damion is. He is actually a best-selling author in personal finance and money thinking. And he is the host of his own podcast show called Transformational Podcast. He has been the owner of more than 30 companies, and he is also a martial art expert. And his martial arts is called Yokido. Sounds like Aikido, but it's Yokido. And he is telling the world that there's always a way to pursue your financial wealth, financial freedom. But more importantly, his message is to free people from money bondage. Damion, welcome to our show. Perhaps, Damion, would you like to just share with us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, Jack, thanks for having me. And I think when I look back, because I'm like a lot of people, I started off with really no idea, with a whole bunch of ambition and excitement. And I went out and started listening to people like our friend Robert Kiyosaki, and I just did what people said. I didn't challenge them, and I really didn't argue with people. I just said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go do it. And so I did everything wrong. And that's how I created $20 million over about six years, by doing everything wrong and a few things right. It's the opposite of the educational system. They say do everything right or you're a loser. And I say you're a loser if you do everything right. So that was how I started. And ultimately, because I was so obsessed with just making the money, the universe gave me feedback. It ran over me with a train, and the 20 million went away. That was part of the reinvention process, and it was to help me understand something that we can see in the background there, the whole side effect. Truly, money is a great way to keep score. But money it's feedback on what you're doing, and if it's sustainable, if it's long term, it means that what you're doing, your purpose, the action you're taking, is what the universe wants. That the universe is going to continue to conspire with you. And if it goes away, what I learned was that the universe didn't like what I was doing, and so I had to change me inside out. And that was the whole process of reinventing and really learning what I teach now. That has changed everything.
Well, I love the fact that you mentioned one very good point where you actually make a lot of mistakes to make the $20 million, and it's truly illogical from what we learned in school. If you were to tell the entrepreneurs to be, or entrepreneurs sometimes we call, how would you convince them that, well, this is actually what is happening in the real world, that you have to make mistakes, you cannot be right all the time? Or one of my mentors, T. Harv Eker, said, and asked people this question, do you want to be right or do you want to be rich? I mean, that's what he says. How would you explain this to people who are so obsessed with what they have learned in school?
Well, I can tell you that if you're obsessed with being right, you're going to work for somebody that's rich. And that you're going to spend your whole life doing that. You might be, but I don't think luck is a strategy. I think the different strategy in it is called making mistakes as fast as possible to grow, because the more you do that, the more you expand. And then all of a sudden you show up one day and you don't recognize the person from 10 or 20 years ago. Right. But if you're unwilling to make those mistakes and learn, you're going to look back in time and say, wow, that person 20 years ago is the same person that I am today. And that's called regret. And it's the worst possible scenario.
I understand. And before the show, we just have actually chatted with each other about some of our common mentors. And because we have some understanding or common understanding about doing businesses, and many people actually ask us, okay, when you do business, what is the reason? What's the purpose? And for both of us, we agree the fact that, well, if you are only concerned about making money, that's not the real reason for you to do businesses. And this is because our mentor has taught us this way. So would you like to elaborate a bit more about this?
There's something that's fascinating that I hear people saying, where they say, well, I'm working really hard. And I say, well, are you waking up and you can't wait to get started? Is there something that's burning inside you to do the thing you're doing because you see why you're doing it? And for most people that are out there, the problem is they don't have that burning desire that keeps them up at night, and they can't wait to get started. And that was, I got excited for a while because of the money. And then I got really tired. And then I realized it was never enough. And that's the big problem. If it's about the money, yeah, there's more money, but you're going to have a lot of success. The problem is you miss the fulfillment of your life. And that's the power, because the money becomes secondary when you have that fulfillment focus. And the fulfillment focus is about serving other people. And the bigger you can think about service to other people, the more your life has meaning. And I mean, really, that's what we want, because if we have meaning, then we have happiness. And if we have happiness, we found the key to life.
It sounds pretty interesting to say that at the end of the day, we always have this true purpose that we need to pursue. But the fact is that as long as we keep on searching and we found the true purpose of what we do, then the money is just a result of our action.
It is, and here's a secret that I think it's very important, and it's something I learned when I was meeting with my father about 2 months before he died, and he had talked about a lot of things, a lot of places he wanted to travel, and businesses and things. And he and I were sitting there, and he looked at me and he said, there were so many things that I wanted to do, and I felt and saw regret. And I saw someone that was not stepping up into his potential, and he was playing small. And so if you're doing something that's making money and you feel like you're successful, but you're playing at half of what you could, you're still going to end up with regret. And that's the problem with playing small, with playing comfortable, with going after security versus massive contribution. And that's where the 10x thinking is really powerful. When you start to expand and you ask, if I was going to do what I do that I actually enjoy 10 times bigger, what would that look like? And you start tapping into the resources and the people, and all of a sudden your heart and your soul start to open and everything starts to align with you. So that's part of the shift, and it's a secret to move past just taking to really starting to contribute.
That's right. Thank you so much about that. So I want to digress a little bit about your Yokido and Damion, because a lot of interesting common things I've found about my teachers, my mentors. Somehow they talk about they are lovers of martial arts, they have been training, they actually incorporate the martial arts teaching or training into their businesses. So how does martial arts experience of yours relate to what you do in your business?
It's fascinating to me because the martial arts was part of the reinvention process. When I was lost, after I lost the money, I asked myself, well, what's true? That was the main question. And it's a powerful question for all of us to ask. What is true? And then ask it over and over and go deeper and deeper. And then what do I really care about based on who am I? And what I realized was I'm a teacher. And the martial arts that I'd been studying for about 10 years at that point became an obsession. And what I realized is the martial arts was the same as the business world. It was the same as the real. And so I started doing things in the dojo with my students and realizing that everything that worked there, these principles were the same principles that worked in business. A primary one is relationship. If you can really focus on the relationship and make it all about being present in the relationship, then all of the conflict starts to go away and you start to understand someone, and there's no threat anymore because it all dissolves. It's the exact same thing with business. When you start to understand someone and you're focusing on a relationship and not a transaction, then the conflict starts to go away and you start to work together for something, and that changes. You go away from conflict into peace and harmony. So they work together. They're the same.
Interestingly, I learned from martial art that there are so many useful personal development lessons to share with the people. I'm also a black belt first dan, and I've been doing martial art for about 10 years as well. The fact is that when I met with teachers like Damion, I always like to ask the question, like, what is so fascinating about doing martial art? And for me, I learned two things from martial experience, because I picked up martial art not from a young age. I picked up martial art at the age of 38. It was not a very young age to start. But the thing is that the teacher told me, you will be very tired because you haven't been trained. You have just started picking up. And you know what? For 1.5 hours of training, it is kind of like full day training. But you just need to remember one thing. Your mind will find ways to shut you down, will tell you that you'll be very tired and you want to give up. And when you hear something like this, you just remember one thing. Just keep on moving. Keep on doing it, and you never just give up. So in business, what I learned is that it's the same thing. You will have situations where you have a setback on one day, the day somehow is not working for you. Then I relate to this martial arts training and said, well, this is just one day of setback. It doesn't mean that it's always like that. So never give up, just continue, and then things may turn around. So that's the huge lesson that I've learned.
Jack, there's something that happens with martial arts, and it really happens in business too. It's called the plateau, and George Leonard talks about this in his book Mastery. He was a Aikidoka like me, 6th degree black belt, and one of my mentors, and he talks about plateauing, and this happens in business too. But in the dojo, when you're training, it's like you'll do something over and over for months and years, and you feel like nothing is happening. And what's happening is there's like neuroplasticity. Your brain is rewiring, and your soul is shifting, but you don't realize it because we're thinking with a different part of our brain. And all of a sudden, one day, something happens, and you think, "Wow, that was really easy. I get it." Where did that come from? It's because you were willing to stick with the plateau, and eventually there's pop. And sometimes in business that happens. If you're on the right path and you're focused on mastery and deep contribution, the thing happens out of nowhere, and you think, well, how did that happen? It's because you were willing to move through the plateau that seemed like it was never going to end.
Yeah, that's true. And I love the fact that it's the context of the training, the principles that I've learned more than actually what I have been doing in the dojo. Because right from start, I remember for the 90 minutes training, I barely could survive for the first 15 minutes. And it's okay. That after 15 minutes, I will just take a break, 5 minutes, and I'll just go back and continue until the end of the training.
That's a great point with the context versus the content. A lot of students, both in business and in martial arts, get fixated and obsessed around the thing that they're doing instead of in their being. Instead of understanding that it's really more about the presence. The deeper you are, the more present you are, the more principle focused you are, and you understand the principles. The techniques sort of kind of don't really matter that much. But if you're focused on those and you're not present, you're probably going to get punched in the face.
Exactly. I absolutely can relate to that because I got injury before just because of one stupid move. It's insane, but it happens. Anyways, I want to shift a little bit about the key topic that we talk about, that is money, wealth, or the financial freedom. Because when you talk about financial freedom, you have somehow a very interesting definition, because most people talk about financial freedom by looking at the amount of cash or the money they have in their account. And of course, people who have studied a little bit more advanced, they may say that, well, as long as I derive the passive income, which is more than enough to pay off my expense, which is the Kiyosaki's definition, that is financial freedom. And to you, what is your definition of financial freedom?
You see, those two C's, the cash in the bank or the cash flow, is interesting, and it's what most of us can understand. The problem is, we'll just dissect both of them, because if you have a bunch of cash and you think, okay, then I'm good, the problem is you're never going to think you're good, because what if that cash goes away? How did you get it? And with the cash flow, if I said, Jack, I'm going to give you some rental properties, well, that's nice if those things are creating cash. But the problem, again, what if something shifts? And what we know right now is that everything is changing. The whole world is changing quickly, and markets can absolutely collapse. What happens if that asset goes away and you don't know how to go do it again? So it's not the cash or the cash flow. The financial freedom lies in the confidence. And you have to build the confidence muscle by doing something, by shifting who you are, so that all the stuff can go away and you can say, okay, no problem, I'll go create it again. That's freedom. It's not a number in the bank. It's not a number on your balance sheet. It's absolutely your belief in yourself. That's where the freedom lives. That's
true, because your story is that you lost entire $20 million and you can get it back. Because that is how a successful person can say, well, today, it's just a very great feedback or learning experience. Well, I'll get back up and do what I have to do and come back to where I was. And to me, I have the power of doing this. The money, like you can talk about $20 million, like Donald Trump talk about billions of dollars. Like for some people, it may be just $20, but it's the amount, it's the spirit of how I can get back to the game.
It is, and there's this really interesting thing that happens when you go through the process of losing that type of money. And in my process, there's a lot less money than there was before, and I feel a lot more free than I ever felt before. Before, it was, there's this 20 million, and I'm thinking now I need 30, and then it's going to be 50. It was never enough, and I was working myself to death. So then there's this shift where you go into more of a mission, and you figure out what your values are that are driving that, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't really make any difference what that number is, because you're living in the freedom. You're not chasing the freedom.
That's right. I love the idea. And then as an extension to this concept of financial freedom, the next question is, people ask, how do I build my wealth? How do I create the financial freedom the way that Damion you described. And what happened is that I've got friends who are financial advisors. So would you want to advise, like, I know this is going to be a very interesting question because people don't know how to invest. So logically, with limited resources, they would turn to the financial advisors for help to invest the money. So you have already gotten to where you are right now. So what is your take of someone hiring financial advisors to help them invest the money?
Well, the first question I always ask a financial advisor, or I suggest people asking, is make sure you know what your financial advisor is making money in and how they're creating wealth. The sad reality is that most of the financial advisors make their money by getting commission, or they make money by selling things. They're not making money. If somebody's trying to sell you life insurance, they're making money on commission. They're not creating wealth because of what their returns are with a life insurance. But they're telling you to do that. So I want to make sure that somebody's eating their own cooking. I don't want them to be selling me something and not doing. To me, it's an integrity issue. So financial advisors, there's a great book I'm reading right now called Skin in the Game. Really, when people have skin in the game, when they're selling something that they're doing, it's very different than somebody that just sells you a really good story.
Right.
So whether it's somebody that's promoting a deal and they want you to invest in it, or it's an advisor saying, I've got this thing that you should invest in, I want to know where somebody's money is. I want to know what their actual financials are. I don't want them just selling me something and getting me emotionally wound up about it. And so I don't know that I have a lot of faith in most financial advisors because they're mostly just salespeople. And I want somebody that's rich and makes money selling the thing they're trying to promote to me. That's the most important thing when I look at them.
That's true. And in the Asian culture, whenever someone graduated from school and they decide to go to the financial industry because they find that the money is there, they can get a very huge payout. Whereas if you are doing normal job like the accountant, the technician, the salary is not that huge. And financial industry actually pays very well to attract these people. So that's how some of my friends end up becoming a financial advisor. So how do you find if someone approaches you and tell you the same story?
There's something powerful about saying no, and I think it's even more powerful than saying yes, because when you say no, what you're doing is you're creating a blank slate with your life where you're clearing everything off the table, and now you've got an open space. And if you're addicted to the money and you're not willing to say no, but your heart and your soul say this is wrong or it's not right, and you stay there, then to me, you're a whore, and you're not doing what's in integrity. And who wants to wake up? We know when we're a whore. We can feel it, and we try to convince ourselves we're not because we have a fancy title and a fancy business card. But the truth is, the moment you say I'm not willing to be a whore anymore and I'm going to do something that actually matters, and you say no, oh my gosh, you open the space to be able to do that thing that matters and find that mission. But you can't do it if you're too busy trying to chase the dollars.
Exactly. So
well, and question I think I have to ask everyone that's thinking this, I want to do something different, but I'm afraid. The question is, what are you afraid of? And I find it fascinating because I grew up in Alaska, and there were wild animals outside in Alaska. So if you walk out your front door, a bear could actually eat you. And so this is a problem. That's something to be afraid about because your life depends on it. But our amygdala is still thinking that there's something outside that's going to eat us, or if we quit a job, all of a sudden our life is over. And the truth is, nothing is going to happen that involves us being eaten alive. And if we realize that hell on earth is meeting the man or the woman that we could have been, we start to realize, wow, I don't get a second shot this life. I get one shot, and it's time for me to do something. As soon as you have this realization, which is probably why you're listening to us right now, there's something else out there, and it's time for you to be bold. And you know what? You're not going to regret the things you do. You're going to regret the things you don't do, and regret is truly the worst possible scenario.
Yeah, talking about your dad's experience, I can share with you my dad's experience. He has been running his own business for 40 years, and he's because of the money, because playing small, and at the time when he retired at the age of 70, and what happened was that he lost the meaning of life, and he couldn't find anything that is meaningful to him. So every day he just walk around, fooling around, and can see that he is lost. There's a saying that suggests that if someone suddenly has lost the meaning of life, it's time to be returned to the universe, and that can take within 5 years. And my dad faithfully followed the rules, and he returned to universe in 2 years.
It's interesting that you're saying that because there is a mathematical fact in the United States that the average man after retiring is dead within a few years. And it's because when we don't have a meaning, when there's not something that we're contributing to have an impact, an effect on something productive, you're right. The universe says, okay, you're done. And why does it say that? Because we're taking up space and we're consuming resources. And that's not how the universe works. It's a circulation system. And so you got to give to receive. You can't just take. If you take, the universe says you're out of here.
Is that the reason why you don't like the word retirement?
You know what I'm going to say? I'm glad you're tired. It sounds to me like you probably shouldn't be doing what you've been doing. So what do you really want to do? And do that. And so I would say that to anybody at any point, whether they're 20 or 50 or 70, figure out what that thing is that you want to do and spend your time doing it and live, because there is no guarantee for tomorrow. But to think that you're going to retire and then you're going to live is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of that we've made up as a good idea. It's a dumb idea.
Until today, what happened is that our mentor is still teaching. He's still traveling around the world and teach. He's 75 years old today. And Kiyosaki is going to be 71 in April. My teacher, Blessinger, is already 65. So like you say that they are very old at the age and they're still traveling around the world and teaching. So what gives us the excuse saying that, well, I'm 50 and you know what, I've already done enough and want to just go back to my own life and enjoy myself. It's like the world needs a lot of teachers, leaders around. So I believe that the reason why I'm still here, perhaps this is my speculation, of course, is that there's still something that I need to serve, to teach other people based on my experiences.
I think that's exactly why you're here. I think that's all why we're all here, that there's something that we still have to give. And when we don't have anything left to give, the universe unplugs us. That is truly how it works. The most depressing thing I've seen recently is someone that I've known for about 20 years that's in his 50s, and he just doesn't want to really take part in creating. He's basically lazy and checked out. And my fear is that he may not be with us very long. And I think that's terrible. And here's the thing, though. It's a choice. It's not just that he's tired because he's older. It's because he's choosing to check out. And so, we really do have that choice. All of us do. It's a function of whether we want to go focus on something that has meaning or whether we just want to sit around and wait to die.
That's true. And then let us go to the last two parts of the interview. We earlier mentioned financial freedom, wealth, and we have to be careful with whom we are working to help to create our wealth, the financial advisors especially. If I do not want to work with the financial advisors, then how could I possibly be able to build my wealth?
Well, the way that I did it and the way that I still do it is that I'm really conscious about who I'm spending my time with. And in the beginning, I listened to tapes. Now, keep in mind, this was 20 years ago, and there were actual tapes. And if you're in your 20s, you don't know what a tape is, but I listened to people, and that's who I surrounded myself with. And ultimately, I found people that were very wealthy financially, and I modeled. And so modeling is a powerful tool. Here's the problem, Jack, with modeling. If you model people, you become them. And it's great if they have a lot of money, but the problem is you become them. And what I mean by that is I became them in their health. I became very unhealthy like they were. And I became their ethics and morals. I should say that their lack of ethics and morals. So you become whoever you're around. So if you're trying to figure out, okay, well, do I go to an advisor? You might just need new friends. You might need new people that you're going to become, and that may be a different group that are not at the same level, that are way past you. People that are way beyond you, that have already done things, well, my experience is that they want to help. If you're willing to listen and do things and take action, you'll find all sorts of support. But if you argue with them or you don't do anything, they don't want to spend time, and you're going to end up with the same people that are keeping you stuck.
I see. And probably you are already like the 10th person or 11th person who have on this podcast show say again and again that rich people actually are willing to help if you have done your work and if you are humble. Whereas if you are approaching people who are poor, they may not want to help you at all. So it's a very interesting myth that I've seen in Asia, whereby people are very shy from asking for help, especially to the rich people, because the perception to the rich people are they are so busy, they are very arrogant, they just don't want to help you, and who gives you the right to actually approach them? So that is, I see the bottleneck or the obstacle for a lot of our people here from approaching the rich people.
Yeah, there is, and what I found too over the years, many people have asked me for help, and then typically I'll say, okay, I'm willing to help you, and here's what I want you to do first. And usually it's a matter of reading some books because I don't want to teach the same thing that Robert Kiyosaki has taught or Napoleon Hill. I want you to go read the book, and what I find is almost nobody does it. They say, oh, I thought you were going to give me a secret formula and you were going to give me the 5-minute trick to making $1 million. And I say the 5-minute trick is to go buy the book. You can buy it in 5 minutes.
Yes.
And then go start studying, and we'll talk about what you learned and what the author was saying. And I find that most people are too lazy. They want everything yesterday, and they're not willing to spend the time and put the time in. And rich people don't have time for that. I mean, let's be honest. Rich people are busy, and they value their time more than anything else.
Exactly.
So you're not going to get to waste it.
Exactly, and that's what that reminded myself that this is the Kiyosaki's teaching. Go and read, and learn, discuss with each other, and get the lesson out of that. Kiyosaki doesn't teach you the stuff. You go and find your lessons by yourself. That is Kiyosaki's way of teaching. Very interesting.
It's great. He doesn't have answers. He has questions, and he has ways to twist you. And I think that that's important because we all have the inner guru. We have that thing. We have the answers inside. And this is part of building the confidence muscle, that you're willing to go inside and find those, but you have to go through a process of kind of externally searching, and then that triggers internal searching.
Right.
It's a lot of questions. It is a lot of time, and that's the differentiator between really fulfilled people and wealthy people and the rest of the population. People that are really deeply fulfilled and rich, they're willing to put the time in for years and study and be willing to wait to see the success because they're focused on something bigger and more long-term.
Right. And then the next thing probably is about your lessons you have learned by involving or starting more than 30 businesses. Well, due to the limited time that we have, if I were to ask you to summarize maybe just 2 or 3 things about your lessons in business, what could we learn from you?
Well, one of them is money is great and it's dangerous at the same time. So you can have too little money and you could have too much money in your business. And so the answer is, we see this with these companies. They get venture capital and they have too much money and they don't sell anything. So one of the most important things is to figure out if the market even likes your thing. And that means that your focus primarily is getting market feedback through sales. It's not about asking a bunch of people what they think. It's selling something and figuring out what they actually are buying. So that's the primary. And then not getting fixated on having a whole bunch of money. You need some money, but it's not that much. And really it's about holding the vision long enough. I've had a lot of businesses that have made a lot of money, and I've had a lot that have lost a lot of money and failed. Usually the difference is I was willing to stick with something enough for needs to actually sprout, and I wasn't trying to harvest things too quickly. People that are going too fast, wanting it really quickly, they think, oh, I'm going to be the next Uber or Alibaba or whatever the company is. And the truth is these things take time, and you have to let them grow. You can't just go out and hunt and kill everything. And that's the mistake that people make, and that's why their things fail more often than not.
I see. Thank you for that. So the second last question is always a ritual of the podcast show here. So the question is, I always invite the guest to give me the number one or the most favorite quote that you can share with our audiences. Now, this is Damion, because Damion said, well, he didn't have any. So now I'm asking Damion on the spot, what would be the quote that you would like to share with my audiences?
The quote that I love is, and it's my own version of it, the quote is that mistakes are truly not, they're not failures, they're a gift from the universe, they're a gift from God, and it's what allows us to grow and to fulfill our potential in this life, and we should embrace them and not run from them.
Yeah, because mistakes will definitely happen. I made mistake this morning. I made mistake yesterday. I actually have been making mistakes every day. Is I cannot
as fast as you can.
I can't go away with that. The fact is that when I make a mistake, the natural instinct for us is, okay, what did I learn from this, and how do I deal with this? And the thing that I always tell myself is that while it's okay to make mistake, but it's definitely not okay to repeat the mistake, because that means I haven't learned the lesson that I have to learn. Do you agree with that?
Here's the thing that I know for sure. If you don't learn the lesson, you're going to have the lesson show up again, and it's going to be bigger. If you resist the learning, it's going to hurt more, and eventually it's going to take you to your knee, and it may kill you. So it's better to learn the lessons when the pain is small, because they keep showing up until you get it and pay attention.
Thank you for that. And the last question is how can we find out more about you? Where can we check out your website, social media, etc., etc.?
Best place to visit me is DamionLupo.com and tune into Transformation Nation. And you're going to hear more of these conversations and more about financial freedom and really understanding how the universe is going to support you when you're on purpose.
I really thank you, Damion, for showing up and become my guest in my show.
Thank you very much, Jack. This has been absolutely fantastic. I appreciate you showing up and doing this. And I really, to what you just said, it's about you doing it. It's about you not talking about it, but you did it. And that's the difference between the people that we look up to and the people that we don't see. The people we look up to are the ones that went out and did it. And that's what we should all be thinking about, doing something.
And thank you for that. And that concludes another episode of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast show. Next time, I'm going to bring on another successful entrepreneur who is going to share with you the insight, the experiences, and the wisdom to help you take your business to the next level. So Jack Wong here, and have a good day. We are signing off now, and bye-bye.
To continue cracking the entrepreneur code, subscribe for more episodes and download the Amazon bestseller, Cracking the Entrepreneur Code, 7 Tips to Build the Business You Always Wanted at crackingentrepreneur.com. Learn more about author and host Jack H.M. Wong and book your 30-minute discovery session to overcome any professional challenge at jackhmwong.com/apply.